Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing yet again the issue of cannabis. As you can see from the thumbnail, there are protests now going on here in Thailand against the Public Health Ministry for its, quite frankly, arbitrary and capricious decisions, if you will, which I don't see are really based on legislative due process, to basically start quote-unquote regulating, and there's even talk that they may try to quote-unquote recriminalize cannabis. But, you know, as discussed in other videos, it's weird to do that when 18,000 premises here in Thailand have been licensed to sell such products. So again, the legal posture of this is nebulous to say the least, and frankly, I have serious issues with this current public health minister and the way that they've done this. That said, I thought of making this video after reading a recent article from the Bangkok Post, bangkokpost.com. Article is titled, Pro-Cannabis Rally Plans Long Stay Outside Health Ministry. And something that really needs to be understood about this, especially to outsiders who think this is all about a bunch of potheads or something. One, there are medicinal and non-medicinal purposes for this. The whole issue of recreational cannabis, I think, has been blown completely out of proportion. You know, nobody talks about recreational alcohol or recreational beer. Meanwhile, I do wonder if big interests, big pharma, for example, big alcohol, even tobacco maybe, you know, have issues with cannabis being legalized, especially for so-called recreational purposes. The other thing is, frankly, we've seen the medicinal, quote-unquote, jurisdictions, especially in the United States. I think a lot of it is a lot of make work. It's sort of, frankly, it kills the industry. And it drives a certain aspect of it underground, along the same sort of logic chain as what Mr. Opposite talked about with regard to the notion of legalizing casinos here, especially in a limited manner where, yeah, by legalizing it in a limited manner, you basically say, well, it's okay, there's no moral issue with it. So then it just becomes sort of an administrative and legal issue, and people start saying, well, what's the difference between the guy that has to charge way more at a dispensary because he's got all the paperwork versus just selling it under the table and basically it's cheaper. And the point I'm making here is by putting all this onerous requirements, regulations, all of this compliance stuff, it doesn't actually solve the problem they claim they want to solve, which is actually diminishing usage of cannabis. All it does is creates a bifurcated sort of white market, black market system. It's not very good policy to begin with, let alone the problems I've already pointed out many times with regard to the legal posture of it over here. That said, as I discuss in our paid news service, and for those who want to get into that, you can email us media@integrity-legal.com. Go to our in the paid news service, I get into how a lot of this has bigger ramifications, even in a geopolitical context, because look, I mean, this has become a major industry in Thailand. There are expats who are concerned about it for a variety of different reasons, including for medicinal purposes, especially among the retiree community. And I get into that in our paid news service, again, media@integrity-legal.com. While I'm talking about it, also, real quick here, my better half and I have set up a restaurant here in downtown Bangkok, Pancake Palace. As the name implies, it's breakfast anytime, as well as American diner-style food. We've got chili bowls, we've got buffalo wings, we've got cheeseburgers, hamburgers, french fries, all that good stuff. One of my personal favorites, glass bottle Coke, and we're down here in downtown Bangkok. If you're interested in breakfast anytime, including pancakes, check us out at Pancake Palace. Link is in the description below for the location. That said, I thought of making this video after reading a recent article from the Bangkok Post, bangkokpost.com. Article is titled, Pro-Cannabis Rally Plans Long Stay Outside Health Ministry. Quoting directly, cannabis advocates settled in for a long rally outside the Public Health Ministry in Nonthaburi Province on Monday, protesting against perceived moves to recriminalize it. Quoting further, members of the Writing Thailand's Cannabis Future Network planned a prolonged stay despite objections from the ministry. Cannabis Network Secretary General Prasitichai Nunwon said Public Health Minister Somsak Tepsutin's comments during an interview last week implied that cannabis would be recriminalized. If cannabis was put back on the Category 5 list, many related businesses would be seriously affected, he said. Yeah, and I question the legality of that when people have affirmative licenses from the government saying that they can do this. And moreover, as discussed in other videos, without a parliamentary act, I have serious qualms about this because what says the government can't say tulips are a narcotic tomorrow. Or alcohol for that matter. They can just unilaterally say something's a narcotic. No, as I've discussed in other videos, one of the main planks, and I have a Juris Doctorate, but I admit I come from a common law tradition, but I've engaged in comparative law for nearly 20 years now, academically and practically. And look, there is a difference between the way the civil law and the common law system works, but one of the main pillars of the civil law is that in order for something to be made illegal, you have to codify it, and it has to go through due process, which means it needs to go through Parliament. And a couple of years ago when this came up, they said they were going to put it through Parliament. They just never have, and now they're just unilaterally deciding, we don't need to do that, and we're just going to do it like this. Well, I don't see where they have the legal authority to do that. And on top of that, isn't there a cause of action somewhere out there where there are legal and lawfully issued licenses allowing for this activity, this business activity, and those are being contravened just by, this ministerial fiat? And again, apropos of what law? Where's the underlying law that this is based on where this activity is being restricted? Quoting further, the demonstrators planned to stay overnight outside the health ministry, and he expected cannabis shop owners would join the demonstration. Yeah, I can't imagine this is going to get smaller. A lot of people invested time, money, resources, blood, sweat, and tears, got their licenses, had legitimate storefronts, were selling a legitimate legal product to the public, and then one day some guy at the Ministry of Public Health just said, you can't do that anymore, and just live with it. Well, 18,000 businesses were licensed that way. They went out of their way to pay the government fee to get a license. You think they're just going to, go quietly into the night? I doubt it. Quoting further, they had started their businesses following the decriminalization of cannabis 3 years ago. I hate that word. Stop it, Bangkok Post. I'm sick of the wordplay with this. There's no such thing as decriminalization. There's legal and illegal. Those are the terms, okay? This was legalized. Now, whether or not people liked the procedure under which it was legalized, it became legal. And from that point forward, the doctrine of codification applied because it was a legal product, and if you want to illegalize it again, pass a law through Parliament. Quoting further, the demonstrators' petition was received by Tanakrit Jit Arirat, Secretary of the Public Health Minister, who said there was no plan to recriminalize cannabis. Well, that is at least some level of good news. Now, Lord knows if we can, rely on that statement. But that said, this is the current state of play with regard to the cannabis issue here in Thailand. I'm starting to wonder if we're going to start seeing more vociferous demonstrations with regard to this issue, as again, as the sort of thumbnail title implies, there are rice bowls at play here. I remember years and years ago, an old guy who I very, I don't know he'd love it if I called him old, but an old guy who was very much a mentor of mine here said, hey, there's one thing you don't mess with in Thailand or anywhere else in Southeast Asia, and that's people's rice bowl. Their living, their ability to feed themselves. Well, 18,000 businesses had licenses to sell this product. And then overnight, they're told, oh, well, you don't get to do it that way. That license doesn't really work the way we once said it did because we say so. And maybe we'll go ahead and recriminalize this because we say so. You're messing with people's rice bowls here at the end of the day. And that's not good policy under any circumstances. And I got to imagine those people are going to continue being irate about the fact that they can't do their business the way that they could do it not a mere fortnight ago, and the fact that their businesses are being restricted without any kind of act of Parliament. Just, hey, we say so and this is how it is. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, and we'll certainly keep you updated on this channel as the situation evolves.